What's up, guys? Welcome back to Callahan Media. As always, my name is Lex, and today we're going to be getting into a little bit more of a speculative video regarding the identity of the Ultraman in James Gunn's upcoming Superman film. Now, I will say that I will mark it for sure so you guys know this video will have spoilers, because I truly believe I found the comic source of where Gunn designed his version of the Ultraman. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into it. So obviously, we know that David Corenswet is going to be playing James Gunn's Superman, right? He's definitely going to be an interesting iteration of the character, simply because Gunn has said himself he is supposed to be a beatable version. Now, a lot of people think that that's going to draw and pull away from the the overall stakes of the film, but I think that it actually makes for a more interesting scenario, especially as far as the power level of the fights are concerned. Here, if we're talking about Ultraman in the comics, he is actually an evil version of Clark Kent from a parallel universe. In this universe, he was raised by, the same people he crash landed on the planet, but he was sent to Krypton by his father, who was actually evil in Krypton, to conquer Earth instead of to help Earth. In this comic, he also eventually formed up and made I don't remember if it's the Injustice League or whatever the fuck, but he had, Owlman, the evil Wonder Woman, who's basically formed an evil Justice League in his universe, right? So, but in James Gunn's version of the universe, he's this black suited character with kind of a mysterious, swole figure, and he's obviously wearing a hood. Now, when I first saw this, when the first trailer dropped months ago, I thought that his outfit was very, very reminiscent of Doomsday's original outfit in the comics, with the goggles, the suit, all the body completely covered. And I believe throughout this film, Ultraman's armor is going to slowly be destroyed and reveal who he actually is underneath, which we will get into in just a moment. Now, before I get into the speculative parts of this episode, my name is Lex Callahan. Again, this is Callahan Media. Please drop a comment, like, and subscribe if you guys like the if you guys like the content. I'd love to get more people engaged, and I'd love to grow this channel and continue making great content for you guys. So with that being said, spoiler warning. I'm not going to say it again. A lot of people like to watch content on YouTube and get mad when certain creators are in here telling things that could potentially spoil the movie. But I'm telling you fuckers right now, this is a potential spoiler. So moving on, we're going to go into some evidence, and I'm going to give you guys my hypothesis and talk about the possible outcomes. All right, so number one clue into who the Ultraman is this still from the latest Superman trailer? Now, looking at this shot, you can see that Clark Kent's obviously facing and is about to get hit with laser beams from some character who appears to have long hair, maybe have damaged skin. Obviously, he's not in a full-on suit, but you can kind of tell by his overall stance and hierarchy that he is absolutely Ultraman. Look at his bent knees and everything. Now, with that being said, if we're going to take this shot and really break it down to the context clues, because there are very, very, very few that you can tell, especially with his face being hid in the darkness, on a shroud, is that this person has long hair, is shooting red laser beams, just like Clark Kent / Superman, and he also has extreme strength, and definitely moves and fights and pushes like a Kryptonian. And why is that? It's because I believe he is a Kryptonian. Now, there's a comic called Superman Hell on Earth that follows the story of Hell. Now, Hell, who's the figure on the left in this image holding Superman, is from a parallel universe of Krypton. He actually worked with Superman's father, Jor-El and Lara. He was like an assistant to them. And when Krypton is destroyed, he's again, similar to the Ultraman, other universe comic, he is sent to Earth to revitalize Krypton and possibly bring it back and kind of restore it. So in this comic, there's a lot of things going on. I don't want to go into it in detail just in case it hits some crazy story points. But I truly believe that Hell is who Ultraman is. Now, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's who Hell is. Because, if we think about all the possible other options, it could be like a David Corenswet clone, which would kind of be a really bold, not really bold, but like kind of a really boring, identity to this. Now with Hell, excuse me, guys, I'm sorry I got the hiccups. With Hell being a lesser known character, Gunn is able to take a lot of liberties and possibly, discuss, a lot of his backstory and add in the Gunnisms, like I called them, to kind of, give this character his own sort of spin. Now, if we look at this image, a little bit closer, you can obviously tell that him and Superman fight so intensely. He has like the, the remnants of the blue cape on his, hip. He's got the blue pants down there. So obviously he's from Kryptonian descent, seeing as how all Kryptonians have some form of this red and blue armor. Now, with that being said, there's definitely an interesting backstory, because Hell in the Hell on Earth comic traditionally tries to convince Kara Zor-El to join him, to help him bring Krypton back. And once he realizes that his impulses and his plan are not of good descent, that's when the original fight pops off, and he ends up beating the shit out of Superboy, beating the shit out of Kara, and then they team up to take him down. And now, another aspect of this comic, I don't actually have an image, it's kind of hard to find. It's kind of a lesser known comic, and I think that the actual reception was a little bit divisive, simply because they keep creating these Kryptonians who survived, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I understand, and I appreciate it, and I think that sentiment definitely proves that, you know, there was kind of a trope with DC Comics in the writing department that just keep creating all these original characters. Now, with that being said, you know, it's obvious that Lex Luthor has something to do with Hell's, you know, existence in this planet, in this Earth universe, in this particular one. Which is why, especially with the inclusion of pocket dimensions in this film, I'm wondering if Lex Luthor has already figured out the capabilities on how to transport between universes, which is an interesting thing, especially because he's going to be a recurring character in this universe moving forward. Lex Luthor will not go anywhere after this film is over. He will always be in the DCU if they want to keep it strong, especially as far as Superman's family is concerned. And, you know, it's really interesting too, because in this film, we've already seen we have characters like the Hammer of Bravia, who's fighting Superman, and I'm wondering if there's any potential that there could be a couple of multiple identities. You know, maybe Hammer of Bravia could be an Ultraman in a different disguise. Maybe it could be Hell. You know, it could be the comic Ultraman. There's so many different possibilities. But I truly believe that the man in the black suit is Hell from Superman Hell on Earth. I'm not sure how he's going to spin it, but you guys have been warned. This is my prediction. Now, if I'm completely fucking wrong, believe me, I will make a video and when I do the review of this film and tell you guys I was completely fucking wrong. But I honestly think there's a super high chance that I'm correct. And if anything else goes without said, there's a certain element here with Lex Luthor, especially if he pulls out this mech suit. If the mech suit comes into play, which kind of seems like, you know, especially with this movie having already so many characters, you know, you got Guy Gardner, who is a reputable Green Lantern in the comics, in case you guys didn't know who he is. We've got, you know, we've got Mr. Terrific, who's a huge person. He was like arguably the only person better at tech than Batman's, you know, capabilities were. You know, we've got, you know, the Hawk Girl, who's another reputable DC member. You know, we've got Maxwell Lord, who is kind of a, you know, an interesting inclusion into this movie, I must say, to say the least, but his character is reputable also in DC Comics. And I think that, you know, if they take this movie and they do it right, especially if it turns out to be Hell, that opens the door to so much, especially with Supergirl being the next release. I definitely think that there's a huge possible chance that there's a link between Hell and Clark Kent and Kara Zor-El and Lobo in the next film. So, without further ado, guys, that's just my thoughts. Shout out to the Wu-Tang. If you guys like this video, again, please drop a comment, like, and subscribe. Gonna keep making new content. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm crazy. If you're pissed off, let me know. I love you, and I will see you guys in the next video. Have a great weekend.